Hardwood lumber is measured in board feet, abbreviated BF. A board foot is 12 inches wide by 12 inches long by 1 inch thick, or its equivalent. However, when an inspector measures lumber, he can speed up the calculations by assuming that the lumber is all 1 inch thick. The grade is based on the surface area or surface measure of the board, abbreviated SM. The surface measure is calculated by multiplying the full width of the board by the standard length and dividing this sum by 12, rounding to the nearest whole number. For example, a board that is 9 inches wide by 8 foot long would have a 6 foot surface measure. The surface measure is equal to board foot measure in 1 inch thick lumber. If the lumber you are grading is thicker than 1 inch, the surface measure remains the same, but to calculate board feet, you multiply the surface measure times the thickness in inches. For example, our board that is 9 inches wide by 8 foot long has a 6 foot surface measure. If our board were 2 inches thick, we would multiply our surface measure of 6 times our thickness of 2 inches, which would give us 12 board feet. Remember, the grade is based on the surface measure of the board, not the board foot measure. Since hardwood lumber is usually sawn in random width and length, calculating surface measure can be time-consuming. To speed up the process, lumber inspectors have a tool available to them that automatically calculates the surface measure of the board. This is referred to as a lumber rule. With it, the inspector can quickly determine the surface measure by placing the rule across the width of the board and reading down the corresponding length. For example, on this 10-foot board, I put my ruler across the width of the board, I read down the 10-foot scale, which would give me an 8-foot surface measure. Finally, hardwood boards have 2 sides or faces. Unless otherwise specified, hardwood lumber grades are established from the poor face of the board. The inspector examines both sides of the board and decides which face yields the least amount of clear